What would you rather? 3 or 4 in-houses in a year, or the ability to do just one legit competition in the year?
Can I get back to you tomorrow? Just kidding.
Yeah, so now we have Corissa Sivorot from the West Shore Warehouse. And I guess you've been thrust into the midst of the pandemic like the rest of us. And the point of this episode was to get your perspective on kind of how that's been affecting your business, but of course you as an individual. Let me just start with a fairly specific question, actually.
Okay.
So you're fairly active on the social medias, and more specifically, you tend to post your training sets, or at least snippets of your training sets, a fair bit. And this has been a regular thing for you. Could you tell us what your motivation is to post those sets, and whether or not the pandemic has changed your motivation to film those sets, or has, I guess, has it affected, the reason that you do it, or of course any of the feedback that you get, or basically, I don't know, what you are looking to get out of posting those sets, because obviously you can create dialogue with other people, with other lifters, with other coaches, and in a environment where we don't really see each other face to face, obviously we can, we're not necessarily limited to communication digitally. But has it taken on a different form since the pandemic? But let's start with what motivates you to upload them in the first place.
Okay. Sorry, you've got a cat. You can just stare at the cat butt here.
It's furball.
It's furball. It's Walter, the furball. I've got beef jerky in my hand, so he's like trying to get after it. So I need to figure out where to put it that he can't eat it. What motivates me to post my sets? So I video all of my sets. I like to watch my sets. Sometimes I lose count, so I like to use that as just kind of backup if I lose count. And then I'm just always am watching my technique. So I video every single one of my sets, and I don't delete them off my camera, which is an issue that I need to deal with.
Like off your phone, you mean?
Off my phone, yeah. So my phone is just like full of.
So you sprung for the full 500 gig iPhone 10, right?
Oh, whatever Adam has for us. I video all my stuff. And what motivates me mainly, and it has motivated me to post my sets, is I kind of feel like it's a bit of a diary for me. And I always feel like I've got a lot of stuff going on in my head during a set. And sometimes after a set, I feel motivated to post something because it's like I just want to get it out of my head, or I'm reflecting on a set, or talking about how challenging it is or not, or
are you purging frustration when you do that, or do you have like an epiphany, or is it all of the above?
All of the above. Like sometimes it's an epiphany where I'm like, oh my God, something just came together and I need to share it. And then other times it's like, this is really fucking hard. And for me, like, it's a bit cathartic. It's like I said, it's kind of like a journal or a diary. And I like to look back on it personally. I watch my videos a lot, my own videos. Because I like to look back and see where my head is at different times of my training, different years, different seasons, different bell sizes. Because a lot of times I find that sometimes I get stuck in thinking like it should be easier by now, or like maybe I never struggled with this weight, or like I didn't struggle to hit this pace, or whatever it is, or like I get frustrated that I haven't changed something technically. And so I'll look back at those videos and I'll see like, oh wow, like my technique has changed. Like stop being so hard on yourself, or like, you know, you did really struggle when you started lifting the 20s, you know, like, you know, you did feel like it was impossible, or all of the challenges that I go through with every bell size. And even like my results for training too, like looking back and be like, oh, okay, well, like last year when I did this, you know, I could barely hold this RPM, and now I can hold, you know, 2 or 3 RPMs higher, or whatever it is. So that's my main motivator to post. So like just looking back on those posts or people reading them is, you know, realizing like, you know, we all plateau at points, and sometimes it does feel like we're going backwards, and we are kind of like especially when we're fiddling around with technique and stuff, like you might have a set where you did less than the time before, and that's totally normal and part of the process. So that's another motivator that I've found through posting, is that people, you know, connect with that and comment on it and like, oh yeah, that's happened to me too. Or, you know, maybe in class people will say, like, I've even had some of the team say like, was that post about me yesterday? And I'm like, no, like that post wasn't about you. That post was literally like what was going on in my head during the set. So yeah, so I enjoy doing it. And I know it's a lot of just videos of me lifting, but it's kind of mainly for me to look at
Right.
and look back at and learn from, and hopefully other people can too.
So if that's sort of serving as your diary, are you still keeping, so do you have a log of some sort? Like a paper training book?
I logged everything until I started training with Charlie. And then I just sent him my results, kind of like each training session. And I never actually wrote any of that stuff down. So that's kind of a bummer for me that I don't have, you know, those years of that programming, like my actual results written down. But I am starting to keep track of that. I actually just started a Google Doc like last week. So because I like having it. So I'm going to start tracking everything. But like I said, if I really wanted to be, take the time to do it, I could go through every single one of all of my videos are on my phone. So I could go through every single one of my videos and, you know, write down my results from that.
What's the likelihood that that's going to happen?
Yeah, 0. I'll hire someone.
Yeah. And that's why I asked that question was, sometimes in training, I have that epiphany and, I'm like, oh, I'm going to have to write this down. Like this really works for me. And then I don't write it down. And then, you know, a couple of training sessions later, I'm like, there was something I was supposed to remember.
Oh yeah. Right.
Or you're making an important decision on something. It's like you're presented with 2 techniques and you're like, okay, I'm going to try these out. I'm going to try to figure out which one's best for me right now. And then you go through your training session. You're like, okay, it's definitely this one. And then you don't write it down. And then you go back to do, you know, the similar training session. And you're like, oh shit, I don't know what I'm supposed to be practicing. Mm-hmm. Sometimes my training is so, can be so all over the place that affects me when I go into competition as well. I go into competition. This is when you never really want this to happen, is when you're questioning, like, did I settle on this technique or that technique? Mm-hmm. Oh shit. So yeah, that's why I asked, if you also keep that paper log along with that.
No, I don't. But I most of the time tend to post what I feel are my important sets. So I feel like I can look back on that too, right? But I'm sure I miss things.
Yeah. Has there been, when you've posted one of your videos, and I know that you gave some examples earlier of some commentary, was there any comments on any of your videos that sort of extended the tail end of that epiphany, where it was just like they kind of built on what you were kind of thinking about, and then it just really contributed that much more to the benefit of posting it in the first place, if you get what I mean?
I totally get what you mean. And I think there has been, but I can't remember a specific instance, but I know
must have not been that profound.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So yeah, I can't remember exactly, but I will say that recently, well, especially with the 24s, I think talking about failure a lot. And sometimes in my stories, I'll post like, just recently I posted one where I failed my 15 seconds. So like I didn't get my last two reps in there. Right. Yeah. Cause I started going too fast and I was getting like a little bit cocky. I was like, this feels really good, but with the 24s, it feels good until it doesn't. And then all of a sudden you get out of that groove and it's gone. But anyways, I had quite a few people message me specifically on that story saying like, oh, it's so good to see that you're human. And like, I really like to see videos of people failing, and not just because it's like they want to like
in person. You are the most human person ever.
Sorry?
I said in person, you're the most human person I know.
Am
right? I? In the sense that like you are very personable. So the fact that people would like, who obviously know you in some way, shape or form, because they're commenting on your video on your page, have these people just not met you before? Oh, it's nice to know you're human. Well, what do you mean by human?
Well,
I don't get it.
Yeah. I mean, definitely making a lot of connections with people that I've never even talked to before, that you just start following through the kettlebell world and that live all over. So, like some people that are starting to comment that I'm kind of developing this, like either like we like each other's stuff or comment on each other's posts and stuff. I wouldn't have met any other way through social media and through posting my lifts and stuff. So yeah. And I think also too, is like a lot of times a lot of people will comment things like, you make it look so easy, or it looks so effortless. And I'm like, well, I'm dying inside. Yeah. So maybe there's
that is the idea though, is to make it look effortless, right? At least.
True. Yeah.
I mean, that is one of the key differences between someone who's good at something and someone who's not. Cause you can both be like, the internal struggle and the physical struggle can be very intense. But when someone watches you do it and you're good at it, it looks very fluid and you look calm on the surface, right?
Yeah. While your body's screaming.
While your body's screaming. Yeah.
Or your head saying stop. Yeah. So yeah, maybe what I'm saying is maybe that's because people see those videos and think, oh, it's easy for her. And then they see a video of me failing and being like, oh, maybe it isn't so easy. So I don't know if that's what.
Yeah. When do you feel like you need to distance yourself from the social media contact and dialogue and interface?
Well, see, I'm pretty bad at that. And I've started to, especially in the last year, 2 years, try to be a little bit better with setting boundaries. I actually, well, maybe not, or maybe I have, I thought, turn off my active status, because I do enjoy talking to people. So it's hard when I'm getting a bunch of messages not to get into conversations and have that take over my free time. Not like I want to not converse with people, but there needs to be a line, right, where you're having some downtime and you're not always talking about, kettlebells or work or whatever.
Yeah. And that's true as a trainer and instructor as well, because you have that large client base
Mm-hmm.
that everyone wants a piece of you, but in their perspective, there's not a whole bunch of people screaming at them wanting a piece of them necessarily. Obviously, people have different jobs and different things, so I can't speak for everyone, but as a trainer and instructor, it can be a little overwhelming.
Oh, totally. Like sometimes I'm looking at my phone, I'm like, oh my God, like by the afternoon, I'm like, how am I supposed to get back to all these messages? So trying to,
and there's a personal, there's a personal guilt there, but then there's also that professional guilt, right? Because that the good trainer and the good business owner should be responding to these. And of course, we also know that Google will tell them how good we are at responding within a certain period of time, right?
Yeah.
And so that reflects on us. And so there's that pressure all the time. Yeah.
Well, there's social media, Facebook, Instagram, and then you get text messages and then you get emails, right? So it's like, so I actually, like, especially during COVID, it became quite apparent because of course people are freaking out, right? Especially like any kind of change that's happening to the gym. And then next thing you know, like my inbox is exploding for like through like say Facebook Messenger about like what's going on or do I have to do this or whatever, right? And I'm like, so I had to put out on our private Facebook group for our gym, like email the business. Like as much as like I love all of you, I can't be individually answering everybody's messages or else, that's my entire night. So I kind of put that out there within, the first few months of COVID because it was just getting quite overwhelming because it's also right. You're feeling people's anxiety over those messages too. So you're trying to be like calm and, so, that's a thing.
and I think, I don't know, as a business owner, not that I take business itself super seriously, like, and I mean that in the sense of I'm not motivated by monetary gain, but I like to take pride in sort of being a working professional. And having your own business is part of that. And so you have to sort of have your own internal policies and protocols. And you sort of acknowledge that you represent a part of the community that is somewhat, at least, looked up to, might not be exactly the right phrase, but there are certain responsibilities that you carry when you represent a constituency, which in effect is what your client base is. And so you have an image and you have a presence, and then tack on the sort of adjunct part to that where we're kind of part of that health and fitness space. And yes, obviously we'll say, yes, we're definitely part of the fitness space, but there's definitely an argument to be made that we're also part of the health space. And I like the way that kind of Gray Cook put it where he said that we are essentially on the front lines of people's health. And it's when they get too far beyond our ability to help them that then they kind of have to go to the medical community for that. So, tack on that responsibility of being part of the health and fitness community. And then all of a sudden you feel like, okay, I need to choose my words very carefully when it comes to the provincial protocols and mandates and all the political stuff that's kind of swirling around all of that. And so you want to be able to kind of give your perspective or your opinion on the matter or your own personal policies and protocols, while at the same time you want to kind of make sure that you're being as professional as you can and I guess carrying the torch for the health community as well. And I got to tell you, I have not been impressed with the protests outside of hospitals. It's like,
oh my gosh,
I have a problem with political policy. I'm going to go protest in front of a hospital.
Oh, so brutal.
You can't phone call your MP, right? Go through the normal diplomatic process.
These people are just trying to help, and they're already in a shitstorm. Yeah. And you're like, it's unbelievable to me. I don't even understand how someone's mind would ever work the way to think that that was a right thing to do.
It definitely created headlines, so maybe that was what they were going for.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I definitely feel a certain amount of responsibility to have their back, and especially in those situations where being, in a sense, sort of persecuted for being part of the health mandate machine, when really your only responsibility is to try to help these people and cure them and save them from, potential fatal consequences, but to then be attacked with political vitriol. It definitely lacks a certain tact, but I went off on a bit of a thread and tangent
Yeah,
there.
some things to say, and I agree.
Well, I'm just trying to, phrase it fairly as matter of factly as I can. So, there's a time and a place, and that definitely, I don't think, was the time nor the place to be doing those things. And so that is the present state that we do find ourselves in the pandemic, and our businesses are definitely affected by that. At my work, we have followed through and instituted the vaccine passport policy. We have definitely had many cancellations because of that. We've had many frozen accounts because of that. But then again, we've also had definitely the majority of people having more of that positive stance on it, which is good. And from day one, to be honest, besides all of I'm generally pretty good at compartmentalizing things that happen around me, but there have definitely been moments during the pandemic where I kind of got that queasiness in my stomach of like thinking about all of the casualties of this and all of the social turmoil.
It definitely weighs on you. I mean, everybody's affected by it. And I don't know about you, but it's a big topic of conversation with every single one of my clients. As much as, we try to steer away and talk about other things, it's like, it's the topic, and it's been the topic for a year and a half. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course I, not overtly try to not make it the topic, and this was the point that I was going to get to, was again, me being pretty good at compartmentalizing things, is that, to be honest, since the COVID began, my life has not really been affected in such a sense that definitely my rights have not been infringed upon. I'm doing literally all the things that I used to do, with a few curveballs added to it, like, scanning a QR code here or there, and which has just been really recent. And the mask thing, I try to put those things in perspective. Like, there are literally countries who voluntarily wear masks all the time, in Asia. So it's like, I always try to put things in perspective like that. And because it can teach you something about whether, like, how far to the left or right your sense of normalcy really is. There's that whole thing about like the Overton window, where your sense of normalcy can shift depending on certain cultural, environmental, and temporal factors. So if things are like wild and crazy enough, like they were in the MAGA years, where the ante just kept getting upped and upped and up, it basically, the normal sort of shifted into crazier and crazier and crazier territory. And that was people's reference point. So we are definitely at a new reference point now. I feel like where, masks are definitely more accepted. I remember when the whole mask thing was first proposed, and you look at someone wearing a mask and you'd be sort of suspicious of, like, why are they wearing a mask? And I'm not sure if I'm ready to wear a mask. And then it completely flipped, and you look at someone in a public space who's not wearing a mask. You're like, why aren't you wearing a mask? And like, why aren't you on the bandwagon yet? And it's so weird that way.
Yeah.
But I think these are great learning moments where it does challenge our perception of what is normal and why we think it's normal, and whether or not it's just the fact that we are not comfortable with change.
Well, I mean, we're definitely not comfortable with change. I think human beings, I think that's just like in our nature. But you think back to any law that's been passed, and I'm sure there was an uproar, like say like when the seatbelt law was passed, right? Like, back then there was definitely people fighting against having to wear a seatbelt and or otherwise be fined, right? So it's like all these things that like I feel like we're gonna look back at and be like, remember when people were freaking out about having to get a vaccine or whatever it is, right? Like that just becomes normal to us. That
violence in video games, sex on TV.
Yeah.
The inevitable change that happens in the uproar that accompanies that.
Yeah, totally. I think that's just...
you definitely could argue that some things may not have necessarily made things any better, such as sex on TV and all that stuff. So, the real point of this is that, it's been a challenge, but I think if you take the time to try to put things in perspective, you can adjust the normalcy of it, right? You can adjust your outlook and you can make things work. And I'm the kind of guy who looks at any given situation or looks at any barrier. I'm like, how do I make this work? How do I keep moving forward? And I do think that mentality and that attitude, number one, is really what pulled me out from a dark place, just coming out of public school when, around the time when my dad died and I had to go live with my mom and had left my home, which was sold and auctioned off, all the possessions that were there, and moved to a completely new city, left all my friends back home, put on a bunch of weight. And I sort of had to take a look at my situation and be like, okay, how am I going to find my way out of this? And, the reality is it is up to you to make things happen and pull yourself out of those dark places. Cause, try as many other people may around you, like no one can really walk your path or overcome your barriers for you. And a lot of the time those barriers are mental. So yeah, that's not really going to be achieved externally. So for me, this is a lesson that I've taught myself that has helped me be successful as a person in my work, in my academics, in my athletics. And but people come from different backgrounds too, and so it's hard. I mean, obviously I came from a background where I don't know, I got the shit kicked out of me by my brother and had like really bad self-confidence and, had the trauma of my dad passing, and all that stuff. But it's interesting because I'm one of three brothers and we all sort of react to the situations that we're in a little bit differently. My eldest brother, he was kicked out of the house early, so he doesn't really apply. But myself and the middle brother, we essentially grew up in the same household, but we kind of went two very different directions. And when you examine the whole nature versus nurture argument, this is something that does get brought into the light, which is the fact that you can have two people nurtured in the same household. And you can make the arguments that obviously different siblings are treated differently, and that affects how they are nurtured. But nevertheless, you can have such different people coming out of the same home.
Yeah. I actually watched a bit of a podcast on, I'm not a behavior scientist, so don't take everything I say with a grain of salt. But on like the nature versus nurture debate. And they were talking about how it's not just within like your immediate family group. It's also like, who are your mentors outside of that, and who's your peer group, and how much of an effect, teachers can have on, how, children develop into adults and the behaviors in the past they choose, and like their friend groups, and then going to their friend's house and their family and all these things. So it's not necessarily just okay, you were both raised in the same home, but I don't know if your peer groups were different, or you had a different experience with your teachers or in school, or I think all of that stuff outside of the house too can have an effect just as much.
And those experiences imprint differently on different people, right? Because with all of that said, that you said, a teacher, for example, could say, you're never going to do anything with your life. Someone might take that and be like, well, I'm going to show you. And the other person might take that and be like, I guess you're right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's very complex that way. So coming back to the topic of working in the pandemic. Now we've already been through 2020. Man, what a year that was.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird. It seems long, but it also seemed like it just flew by, and I don't even know what happened.
We're in some sort of weird pandemic vortex right now. But we were both lucky enough to run our competitions in person.
Yes.
Tell me about the nerves leading up to that 2020 West Shore Open.
Oh my God. I was sending an email out like every hour. And I don't think anybody read them because people were still showing up early. I was totally nervous because we were allowed to eat, like restrictions were eased a bit. We were allowed to have up to 50 people, but as long as it was outside. So we were limited to a certain amount of people inside, and we had to make sure that we were socially distanced. But at that point, it wasn't masks mandatory, and it definitely wasn't masks during workouts. So was just trying to make sure that we kept everybody as safe as possible. And I think we were still learning so much about the virus that no one really knew, like, okay, well, like, is this being easily transferred on surfaces and, all that stuff, or like when you're sitting outside. So, I was very nervous, and I really wanted to make sure that we were keeping everybody safe. So we really laid out quite a few guidelines on how, this thing was going to go. And we were like Lysol wiping down every judge table between the switch. Everybody had their own chairs with their name on it. So when you went to go judge, you picked up your chair. You weren't sitting on anybody else's chair. Like a way to walk the bells out and around so that you weren't walking in the same door. It was a quite nerve-wracking, and then just regular competition stuff on top of all of that, right? People last minute flight schedule changes and yada, yada, yada that goes along with a competition. But we were super lucky to do that, and it ended up being a beautiful day. It's a beautiful sunny day. So it was awesome. So people just sitting outside, and they could watch from outside, and we had it live streamed. And then we did that nice, like dinner, lunch outside at Juan de Fuca at the field there, which was really nice. So it was great to see people, because we hadn't been able to get together for so long. And it was just good to see people having fun and having a good time, and giving people an opportunity to lift and compete in person. Felt pretty good. And everybody was really supportive. And even though there was few people still not reading emails and showing up early, and maybe some people standing pretty close. And I was like, oh my God, like you don't want to feel like you have to be policing people, but at the same time, you're like, you don't want anything to go wrong.
Yeah. Sometimes that's the distinction I make at work too, is that, we're going to enforce the protocols insofar as they have become internal policy, and we have put in the measures to make sure that they can be followed as easily as possible. But now I'm just like, you guys are all adults. Like, if you honestly want to come in here and be a dick, I'll throw you out on that basis, not because you're not following the policies. And that's about as matter-of-factly as I can put it. So yeah, I'm not really interested in like policing right now. And I don't think that it's really our responsibility on like a civil or social level per se. Because I mean, you already have like, you know, they're say they'll give out tickets and fines anyways. So it's not like the municipalities or the province isn't, you know, policing it in a sense anyway. So, you know, people are adults. They can attempt to make their own wise decisions. But I think if you make the whole process as easy as possible for people, it makes it, you know, effortless. It's kind of the same thing with when we're trying to enact behavioral change with people with like their diet or their just their home behaviors, like trying to incorporate a more active lifestyle. If you can make the new lifestyle as effortless as possible, the chances of adoption are much higher. Mm-hmm. So if you can just do that with some of these things, it makes the process that much easier. Would you say that right now, in the midst of the fourth wave with the Delta variant, in the midst of having a mask mandate, in the midst of having now a passport, the passport program, would you say that essentially the protocols are stricter right now than they were West Shore Open 2020? And this isn't a trick question. I'm just,
I said,
okay.
yeah.
Okay. Would you say though that the feeling is more relaxed or more tense than it was back in West Shore 2020?
I don't know. I feel more confused.
So again, back to your point of like, we still didn't know very much about it back then.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like it was more tense then than it is now.
Definitely. I feel like we've settled into our groove a bit with all this stuff where it's like not as like maybe frightening. And I don't know how much of this is also because now I'm doubly vaccinated and everybody that's coming into the gym is double vaxxed or at least single vaxxed until October, whatever. So it kind of gives you that sense of security. So you're like, okay, well, we're still doing these protocols, but like we also have this other line of defense too, right? But I guess maybe why I say I'm confused is because as of July 1st, when they changed a bunch of the protocols and masks were no longer mandatory, but it was supposed to be worn by people that weren't vaccinated and yada, yada, yada. Gyms could go back to their normal capacity. We never went back to regular capacity.
Right.
We kept people separated in their squares because at that point, July 1st, none of the staff had been vaccinated yet. Some of us had been singly vaccinated, but none of us had been doubly vaccinated. Some of us hadn't been vaccinated at all. And so we knew that if we weren't, then that means our clients weren't either. So what do you mean we're going to go to no masks and now everybody's working out beside each other? You go from like the super strict, like, okay, masks and separated to like, all right, well, they're just recommended for people who aren't vaccinated. Like most people aren't going to be choosing to wear a mask while they work out.
No. And so that was a big revelation. People got really pissed off about the mask mandate, right? Mm-hmm. So when they did away with the masks, they didn't say the change wasn't that we don't think that you don't need to wear them. The position was we still think that you should wear them, but we're going to leave it up to you. And then no one wore mask. And I was like, this is why they mandated masks, because given the choice, you will not do it.
Well, because the thing is, the difference between the confusing part was like phase 3 was now masks are recommended for people who aren't vaccinated. And then phase 4 is personal choice. But in my perspective, there was no difference between phase 3 and phase 4.
Right.
Because once they announced they were only recommended, no one wore them.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So
and I knew
so how
who
is that
was
not personal choice.
And you could tell, because phase 3, it was like you should still wear it if you're not vaccinated. And I was on the vaccination list. I knew when people were getting vaccinated in my city. So when everyone pulled their masks off, and I was like, wait a minute, there's no way you're ahead of me in the queue.
Yeah. So that's why we kept everybody still in that 6 foot distance.
Yeah.
And we still are right now, because we don't really know, like, okay, so what's the next step? Now we've got our vaccine card. So, okay. So now, like, we're talking, Tim and I are trying to figure out, okay, so next week, are we going to go back to like people side by side and sharing equipment?
Right.
So, I mean, I guess that's what I mean by we're confused, because we're, you're trying to follow rules, but you're also trying to keep people safe. And
we had a lot of, I think a lot of justified confusion and criticism over the whole wear masks in the public areas of the gym, but while you're working out, you don't have to wear it. And with our gym, I mean, it's an open gym. I mean, there's people walking here and there and everywhere from machine to machine. And, you know, machines are, you know, for the most part spaced 2-ish meters away, but people are kind of passing each other all the time. And there are some people who will go through their whole workout with their mask on their chin. And it's like, well, I'm not going to say anything, because I mean, you're essentially, you know, within the protocols, guidelines. Exactly. So there's a lot of criticism about that, but, you know, I guess I don't really have much to say about that as far as my own opinion. It's like, you know, if that's the policy, then, you know, we'll follow through, and it's all good. But in that respect, it's like, okay, if our job is to sort of keep people safe, are we being successful at doing that? But I guess in that respect, the proof would be in the results. So, you know, if you're not having outbreaks, then I guess it's good enough.
Yeah.
Right. In general, putting on a competition. So let's break from the pandemic talk for a moment. Putting on a competition. Remind us of what the first year was that you guys put on the West Shore Open, and all of the preparation and perhaps trepidation and perhaps apprehension about whether or not you even wanted to do it. Tell us all about that stuff leading up to your first West Shore Open.
I like to block that stuff out.
Oh.
So that every year it's a brand new experience.
So it's an inaugural event every year.
I find it quite stressful. Because although there's people that are willing to help me, a lot of times I feel like I can do it all, and they don't really realize I need help until it's too close. And I'm like, oh shit, running around. But like, so we did our first, like in-house competition before West Shore Warehouse when I was working out fitness. We did that, in 2014 as a fundraiser to go to Dublin. And it was just about, you know, me and Christine was also going. Christine, I forget her last name. Oh my God, Broadhead. We're going to Ireland. So we thought, we'll do like a little in-house competition and get all the people that come to the gym to do a lift, and we'll raise some money and yada, yada, yada. And just like wasn't really a huge plan, right? I just said, who wants to lift what? And then I just wrote up on the board, and everybody just kind of went with their name, and we had like people volunteering, judges, and yada, yada, yada. And then it kind of just grew from there. And then when we moved to ice, when I first met Tim and we weren't working together yet. I think you came down to that one. Maybe that was the first one you came to.
Yeah. That was the weekend after Linda did hers, okay. I believe. Because I do remember it being like it was either, or was it back-to-back days? It might have been back-to-back days.
I don't remember.
Like she did a Saturday thing.
I didn't even know she was running one. It was just more like, oh, this is a good weekend to run. And again, it was just like an in-house. I wanted to put something together to give, you know, people who were on the team or liked lifting kettlebells an opportunity to have like a competition like environment.
Yeah.
So not a ton of prep, right? Like no one paid anything. It was just by donation. I think we raised money for something.
Who did I give that $50 to?
Yeah, me. To my car. I'm just kidding. No, we did. It was a donation. Like every year we made it like a donation towards, sometimes we did for Power to Be. We've done like Goldstream Food Bank.
What's Power to Be?
It's a, I want to call it a club. It's kind of like a leadership course for teens and sometimes it's for like troubled teens that maybe need some guidance, and then, they go and they live out in the woods for 4 days and get that experience of, figuring out how to camp and light a fire. But anyway, it's a really great program. And I learned about it from someone I used to work with. Her son, kind of made a pretty big turnaround at 14 through taking that program. But yeah, so you would just be like a donation. And again, it was just like, everybody just tell me their lifts. And I just put together like a pretty quick makeshift like flight schedule, and everybody was jumping in to judge and yada, yada, yada. And then so it started to turn more into like, okay, this is starting to get like more of a serious competition vibe, which is good and bad. Like, originally putting it on, it was like to give me experience too. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, to give the team experience and to give me some experience lifting, so that like when I go to a world event, then, I've got that practice behind me. And there was nothing like when I started lifting kettlebells, I feel like it was a long time ago, but I guess it wasn't that long ago compared to a lot of people that have been lifting. But say like 2014, it was like, what was on the island for us to do for a competition? Like, it was only if Linda had hers, which, CKA would be moved, or wait, CKA they went to like...
That was nationals.
Yeah, nationals,
but she would
right?
always do her Victoria Classic until I think the 2015 was the last year.
2015. So it was like, unless you wanted to travel, you had one opportunity a year to lift on a platform.
On like, a legit platform for like rank.
Yeah.
But she was good about doing the Inhouses.
Yeah. Which I didn't really know her well enough to,
right.
I think, to get into that. So
I don't even know how I inserted myself into that.
Yeah.
Right.
I think you probably made the connection between me and her to go to like the pentathlons and stuff too. Right. And I was just so green, and I didn't really know any of the stuff. So that's kind of how it started with me putting on competitions, was like, okay, well, I'm going to do one competition a year. Like and giving some of, my clients and some of the team an opportunity to see, do you like this? Like, is this something you could be into and maybe get inspired by to continue lifting, or, see some other lifters from the island, because there was quite a few on the island that would come. You guys would come down from Nanaimo, and there's a BDHQ group and some people from Linda's group too. So anyway, so that's just kind of how it started. It was supposed to be just kind of like a relaxed, fun event. And then every year it's grown a bit, and it's become now, something where
it's become the event that people go to cash in.
To cash it. Well, we didn't do cash prizes the last 2 years.
Oh, you didn't?
No.
Oh, I thought you did.
No, we donated $1,500 to SPCA.
Oh.
So because of COVID that year, it was just like, this is getting crazy. Like, I don't even know how to. It was like kind of a lot there. Are we doing it in person? Are we not doing it in person? We're going to have people like video submissions. There's going to do some like live Zoom judging. This is going to get kind of crazy. Let's just like ditch the cash prizes. I'll give out, I think we ordered patches and certificates and stuff, but like kept it again pretty minimum. So now we're working with IKO and Dennis so that you can get ranked at our competitions. And now it's starting to get more serious, which now makes me feel like I need to get more serious in figuring out what
What makes it what makes you feel like it's more serious now compared to before?
I don't know. I mean, part of me feels like it's not, but also there's more and more people that are registering and people that are traveling to compete. So then it's like, okay, they've got to make this like legit, right? So
What
this
do you,
year we're talking.
what do you want to get out of it? What do you want to get out of the West Shore Open?
Again, I want to give people an opportunity to lift in like a relaxed, like friendly environment.
Okay, pause that thought for a moment. And this is largely a product, of the pandemic, I guess. But my biggest regret of the last few years has been not putting on Inhouses. I think there's something about Inhouses that there's a few things about Inhouses that I like better than the experience of the competition. And I am getting older, so maybe nostalgia is part of it. But I do have fond memories of making the road trip down to Linda's and seeing everyone from there, and seeing you guys on occasion as well who'd come, and of course we go to your random in-houses as well that would pop up. But there's something about an in-house, and part of it is the relaxed atmosphere that you described. It just has that clubhouse feel, right? And it has that community feel. And you might have your own personal goals that might, I guess, make you nervous and tense, and might make it feel like there's some stakes to the whole situation, but everyone's just so kind of happy to be together, and there's cupcakes, and you get to put in your $5 to donate to a good cause, and go out for some lunch after, and it'd wrap up in like a few hours, and it would be just enough for it to feel like something you could sort of look forward to, but not so much that it felt like it sort of overwhelmed you for the whole day, or you're running around like an idiot. Oh, I got to be ready for this, and I got to be ready for that. So, and the feedback that I get from the in-houses has always been great. And Dave Atcham would definitely always be at the forefront of all those good graces and kudos that we would get for doing the in-houses, for sure. And of course, Rod and all those other guys. Mm-hmm. So yeah, when I ask you, what do you want to get out of the West Shore Open? Let me rephrase that with this second part. What do you want to get out of the West Shore Open that you can't achieve with an in-house? Or several in-houses throughout the year. And this is the other question I'm going to tack onto that, just to make this question more confusing for you, is what would you rather? 3 or 4 in-houses in a year, or the ability to do just one legit competition in the year?
Can I get back to you tomorrow? Just kidding. Okay, so I'm just gonna.
Your silence tells me everything.
This is how my mind works. I feel like I need to make a list of pros and cons. So the thing about doing like 3 or 4 in-houses, like if I was to host them, it still is like a weekend of work for me. Even if it's not a ton of like planning leading up to it, it's still like a weekend of setting up, cleaning up, being there all day. I love doing it, but it does take a lot. I already work 6 days a week, and even on my 7th day, there's always some work peppered in there. So I just need to be very mindful of like my energy and stuff there. And the pros of doing an in-house, like you said, it is more relaxed, so it doesn't have to be like, I don't have to be like, people need to sign up here, we need to make a list of this, and I need to order chairs, and I need to order like whatever if we're doing for a swag bag or medals, or like have like a super legit flight list, because with in-houses you can pretty easily do some stuff on the fly. Oh, what do you feel like doing? All right, we'll write it down. So that's definitely a plus. But the thing about doing the West Shore Open that I like and have enjoyed is that there are some people that are coming out of the woodworks in the kettlebell community that I don't think would be showing up for an in-house. Whether it's people coming from Vancouver or what. And like, especially last year with the COVID and doing some stuff online, you know, we had some people from overseas, either video submissions or doing the online stuff. So, I mean, that's always fun to be a host of that and have, you know, either people watching that maybe wouldn't normally be watching our group of lifters and, you know, people from the island, or connecting with those other lifters from around the world or, you know, on other places in Canada. So yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't know the answer. There's pros and cons to both. It's just a lot more organizing for the West Shore Open. But I feel like
as an experience, not putting it on, as an experience. Yes. Same question.
Oh, in-house.
Why?
Because I can be more relaxed in my lifting.
Okay. Okay, we'll move on. We'll move on from that one.
Okay, to be super selfish.
To be continued.
To be continued.
What's the thing that people comment most on at your competition?
The music.
How
Just
bumping
kidding.
It is?
How bumping it is?
It's bumping.
I don't know what people comment on. What do you comment on our competition?
All right. Second question.
My MC skills?
Second question.
Okay.
Who started the candy table? Where did that come from? I know where it came from at Todd's. He got it from you.
Oh. Me, I guess. Just having snacks out for people?
But it's not snacks. It's like predominantly candy.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because I feel like at Linda's, there might have been some, and there was definitely the cupcakes, but she had that culinistic flair.
Yeah.
I don't know what word I'm looking for. That culinary flair. Yeah. So she'd also do like hors d'oeuvres and stuff, or something a little bit more elaborate. But yeah, the candy table. Because I feel, and the reason I asked that question is because if I had to guess, that's what most people would comment on. Because to be honest, and I'll give it to you, there's usually a bowl of fruit. Nature's candy.
Okay.
So there's that. You just don't have like the bowl of melted chocolate to dip the fruit into.
It's okay.
Honestly, that's when I go to your competition. There's always something different that I look forward to at different competitions, and at yours, that's definitely it.
Okay, awesome. I like it. It's more just like it's something super easy. You need some pre-workout, or like some pre-workout carbs, but also like we just get like a big fruit tray from Thrifties, and we get a veggie tray from Thrifties. And then a bunch of snack stuff, and then sometimes some people like make like Carrie Ray made cupcakes one year, and like you have brought down. Well, you brought.
There was donuts one year, wasn't there?
Oh,
that was actually at Ice. There was donuts at Ice. That's what you guys had at that one.
Yeah. So anyway, we provide people with sweets. Come to our competition for sweets.
Okay, but now you have to rename your competition to Willy Wonka's West Shore Open.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe people comment about that. I don't know. I just want to provide people. Well, actually, one year we had pizza, or we had pie and ice cream.
That was so dope.
So one of my clients that like I haven't seen her in a while. Now she's got 4 kids. Owns
You say that like it's a bad thing. And now she has 4 kids.
No, just she's busy. She, in like 2 years, adopted a family of 3 and another boy. She's doing awesome. So all of a sudden, just like, the family grew. So she's been busy, and she also owns 2 businesses, and I think she's starting another one. So she owns Parachute Ice Cream, which is like amazing ice cream, and they make the ice cream in-house. And then she also owns Pine Company. So one year she brought in pie and ice cream, and then we made hot apple cider. It was like it was cold. It was like November or something. And so people lifted and then had pie and ice cream and hot apple cider. There was rum there, a 60-pounder of rum, because we thought maybe people want rum. We still have it in our cupboard, unopened. No one drank any.
Oh, it's unopened.
That's how often I drink. Wow. So it's been there since 2017.
I think we need to start a new tradition then.
In our cupboard, because no one drank any. We're like, I guess they're all athletes, right?
Maybe it's not their spirit of choice.
Well, maybe they were nervous, like, oh, I don't want to be the first one to open this drink.
That clearly wasn't an issue when we went to San Francisco that one year.
Well, San Francisco?
There was quite a shot party, right? Going on in the back.
Yeah.
There's photos.
Okay, I don't think I was there.
Yeah, I don't know.
Was I there drinking? I can't remember.
I'm not sure.
Anyways, on to other things.
Yeah. One last question.
Okay.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but the online kettlebell challenge, did that wrap up? Did they close shop?
It looks like it's still happening.
Someone else sort of took the torch, I guess? Like
from Sin and Mark, you mean? I see people posting.
Really? My impression was that they kind of wiped their hands clean of it and sort of ended it.
I think,
but I could be wrong. Maybe just someone left.
People are still posting. I think it's Snatch this month.
Oh,
One hand switch. Get in there, Solly.
Or maybe it's like when you go to like Ford Enthusiast Forum and people are commenting on like a 6-year-old thread.
Yeah.
Maybe it's one of those situations. No, people just keep uploading videos and it's like, dude, this page has been defunct for 4 years.
I'm pretty sure I saw both Catherine and Todd post recently. Snatch.
Well, they would post regardless of whether whether or not like kettlebell. So I don't know if we can use that as a...
There's also another kettlebell challenge cup that's in there too. There's another one that I'm a part of the group of, but I haven't really read. I think it's a 7-minute. They do 7-minute events. But there's just so much stuff, right? And it's awesome, and you want to be involved, but you can't be involved with all of it.
Yeah, I don't want to be involved. It's too much. My question, though, so obviously that online component's been around for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
But as of 2020, we had to shift into online competition, which there had been several prior to us doing going to your West Shore Open, which fortunately enough we were able to do in person. But would you say, so tell me whether you think or not, that the online competition stuff is sufficiently scratching the kettlebell competitive itch, or even kettlebell community itch for most people? Because they do seem popular, but maybe that's just a product of the fact that that's all you can do.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things here. It's really great because it gives you access to all these competitions around the world. There's basically monthly, if not like 2 or 3 in a month, that you might not be able to travel to. So that's really cool. The drawback of that is you have to be really good at picking and choosing so that you don't overdo it, which I have done maybe last year. Or just like this, I'll do this one, right? So it does give people an opportunity from around the world to compete at events where they might not been able to compete at. And I think that can get some people excited, especially if you live in an area where there isn't an active kettlebell community or anywhere to compete locally. So that's great. Or maybe you don't have the money or the time to travel or, resources. But definitely missing like the energy, like of the people at a competition, I think for me is the biggest thing. And it, maybe easier to bow out of when things get hard because you're just in there lifting by yourself and you're like, I've had a couple of my team members come in and lift with me at a few events, and like, it's great, they're cheering, but sometimes you're just like, you just kind of need that crowd energy and someone lifting beside you. I think is really helpful. I get a lot from that. And what was I going to say? Oh, and I did my December one for the Asian World Championships with IK. I think it was through IKO. I actually streamed it live on Instagram because I was like, I need something to hold me accountable to this because it's going to get really hard. And I'm in the gym here by myself. And I could easily put the bells down when I get to the point where I'm like, fuck this shit. So yeah. I was like, I need to go live on Instagram because I need to at least think that there's other people watching. Whether or not they're watching, I won't know until I'm done. But I need to think that like there's someone out there watching and holding me accountable to like finishing a set. Because if I just had to video it and then I stop at start and and that's the thing about some of the video submission stuff, like part of it has been pretty comfortable and part of it I've really liked in the fact that like you maybe you have 2 days to submit it or maybe you have 24 hours or whatever, but it's like, say you wake up and you're like, I kind of had a shitty sleep. You can, if you've got your day free, you can kind of pick and choose what time of day you lift. You could go in there, you could warm up and you'd be like, not feeling it, or I'm hungry, or like need to go to the bathroom, or like any of those factors that come into play, you can kind of get around. Whereas like at a live competition, it's like you're up at 9:05, you're up at 9:05. If you're not on that platform, you missed your lift. Or if you're up there and you do a wonky clean on your first rep of jerk and you're, oh shit, okay, now I'm stuck with this hand position, right? And you're trying to adjust and like, right? So I don't know where I'm going with this, but part of the online stuff, I guess, has been comfortable, but at the same time, it has been harder to stay motivated and push yourself through those spots where you want to give up or you want to slow down or you want to be easy on yourself. Whereas like if you're in a crowd of people that are lifters and they understand what you're going through and they're shouting at you, or you're on the platform beside, like there's 2 other people or 3 or 4 or how many people are up there, and it's like they're suffering alongside with me, and you kind of feel that camaraderie of like, okay, we're going to get through this, all of us. Like you don't have that same experience with the online stuff.
I'm kind of like, man, I hope you're suffering so that I can use that as fuel to try and see if I can get the edge.
Whatever it is, we all all of us are motivated by something different or energized.
Yeah. I'll tell you though, I don't like it at all. No. I do not like the online competitions. Like from a someone who puts on a competition, like it's nice to be able to offer that because you can't really speak to what it gives other people outside of just feeling involved. But as someone who can put it in the perspective of the preparation and anticipation that goes into traveling somewhere and going to a different locale, because when you're doing your set, in the place that you train, it's really hard to separate yourself from the training mentality into the competition mentality, because I do think that's important. And, you know, it's fairly well established that we are influenced by the social dynamic, and part of that is the social competition dynamic. And my best sets have always been the sets where I am on the platform with people better than me. So like the 1 year in Seattle where they had everyone sort of lined up, and you had already done at least one or two like NorCals that were like that had like a huge flight. But like being up there with you and Charlie and I think probably, Apache was up there, and just feeling like, okay, we're all in this together, in the sense that, you know, we're kind of at the top of our game, but then also like, okay, I'm going to try and go toe to toe with you guys too. Right. Because I'm looking at your clock and I'm being like, okay, I got to stay a few reps ahead. And the more that I can do that, the more it fuels me to keep going. Because you don't want to kind of, you know, lose a lead or something like that. Or maybe you're particularly good at sort of climbing your way back. But you need that external reference point to really be able to do that. Otherwise, if you're just there with yourself, perception is everything, man. Like if it's hard and if it feels hard to you, then it's easy to convince yourself that, yeah, it's hard. But if it's hard, but then you see the other person beside you struggling, you're like, well, it's hard for them too.
Yeah.
And then maybe you're picking up on their body language and you're like, okay, as soon as they start to stutter, I'm going to see if I can like get ahead a little bit. And you're watching the clocks and you're watching the scores, and so all that stuff sort of factors into your performance. And like I said, my best performances has always been when I have been up there with the strongest lifters. The time that I finally broke, I guess it was when I broke 80 reps with the 24s, was beside Charlie at your competition. Or was it when I broke 70? I don't know. But it was like over and over and over. The whole year, I could not break that barrier. And then I was able to finally do it. And it was one of the only examples that you will ever see of me finishing a set, like setting the bells down, being like, yes. The only time I've ever done that.
Yeah,
because it was just that catharsis of being like, finally.
Awesome. Yeah.
Because you had to like prove it to yourself, but in a way you knew you might not have been able to do it if you weren't up there with someone who who represented all the best parts of what you aspire to be athletically.
You aspire to be Charlie.
In many ways. Tall, dark, handsome.
Hair your chest.
But, you know, I've got the mustache, so.
You got the mustache.
And I can rock the aviators.
See, and that's where you and I differ. I don't want to be anybody but myself. No, just kidding. I honestly...
You found me out.
I can't, I have no idea what pace anybody is doing around me. I have no idea what's happening around me for what pace someone's holding, or if they're faster than me or slower than me, or I get into my zone and I've got a focal point and I can hear people, and there's certain voices that definitely stick out of the crowd more than others. But I'm just trying to get to a spot where like I'm pushing myself as hard as I can while also staying relaxed and breathing. So it's just like, and I've had a few sets where I've got it, where it's like, and you kind of get an endorphin rush, and you're just like, this is flowing and I can't even stop if I tried. And it feels fucking hard as shit, but also feels like I'm like floating. Like, it's the weirdest, like that's like what I live for above anything else. And it's those sets where I'm like finish and I'm like, holy shit, I look at the clock and I'm like, wow, I just beat blah, 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 or like whatever my rep score was, or my PR or something. And I don't even necessarily think that I'm PRing, I guess. Like I had that's what I had in Korea, right? When I did that 109 with the 16s, like
right.
all of a sudden, like, I don't know, maybe it was the 5-minute mark. It was just like, I just started flying.
Just go.
And and I just got into that zone, and I had no clue what anybody else did on that platform.
And I think that's the mark of really consistent training, right? You have been consistent, and you kind of know each training session what the marks that you're trying to hit, right? Your per session goals, and it's giving you this accumulative sense of confidence with your own internal ability, that once you're up there on the platform, you just perform and you don't have to worry about a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that takes, I think, a love of the sport, but then obviously it takes that discipline too, right? And I don't know, do you start the year with that outlook where it's like, okay, I'm going to be like so on top of things this year, and this is going to be my year-end goal? Or are you just kind of like naturally, I don't know, disciplined with your kettlebell training? I mean, obviously now, you get your programming from your coach and stuff like that, and they're kind of there to help to make sure that you're staying pretty, consistent. But
I just continue to put in the work.
What else are you gonna do, right?
What else are you gonna do? I mean, I feel like the last few months, I'm feeling more motivated than I have in like a couple of years. To kind of be like, all right, so now I realize like what I need to do to get to that next level, where I'm like starting to make more of a conscious effort in, my general fitness. But like, when I started programming with Charlie, he had me running 3 days a week, and along with my kettlebells, which was actually 4 days a week, but one day was just a glove snatch set. So I would run and then do a glove snatch, and then 3 days a week I would lift. One would be long cycle, and then 2 would be biathlon days. And I just followed like I'm one of those people, like if you give me that and say this is what you need to do, like I like that because it makes my life really easy. Mm-hmm. Because I mean, you probably feel the same way. It's like you're programming for people all the time, and all that's going on in your mind while you're training people is like, okay, this is we're gonna do this next, and and like, okay, this is the weight. Anyways, I just like to be able to like go and look at, this is my plan. I don't have to think about it. I go and do it. And so I'm not necessarily being like, I'm going to be so on top of my game this year and I'm going to crush this goal. It's just like, I'm just following a plan, and it's progressive. So it just takes me to those spots. And
I think that's an appropriate place to end, which is something that I say all the time, which is that it's not the destination, it's the journey. But no, in all seriousness, if you get over-focused on the outcome and you fail to acknowledge or enact and actuate the small steps, the process goals that get you to that outcome goal, then you're kind of putting the horse before the cart before the horse. I don't know how it goes.
Yeah.
I don't know how a horse and cart
horse
works.
Before the cart.
Horse before the cart? Doesn't the horse pull the cart?
You shouldn't. I don't know why I even chimed in on that. I'm the worst at remembering any of that kind of stuff.
But that's the thing, right?
Cross the bridge when you bear it.
Water under the bridge in glass houses, sink ships.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, if there's anything that you can take away from what Corissa just said there, was that, if you focus on the day in and day out stuff and you just, you go in, you do your thing, you perform, you have at least some in-session metrics that you're looking to achieve, whether it's set pace or set time or whatnot, then you will eventually get to your goal if you, if you do that essentially long enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
It's true. Just
Okay.
keep doing it.
all right, let's end it there.
All right.
And I so much appreciate you. I appreciate you. But I appreciate you joining us on the program today.
Yeah.
And I hope I think that everyone will take some good stuff away from this episode. I hope. And hopefully we didn't offend too many people with our personal stances on things.
And I'll sign up for grip strength.
Yeah, sure.
Don't
you
worry. You know I'm last minute, but I'll be there.
will. Just show up.
Just show up. Put me on the board.
Okay, yeah. And as a reminder to everyone else listening, final day to register, I think, is going to be the 26th. We'll send out a reminder for that. Same thing with the Strongman workshop. We're going to do a last call on that one, too. And then West Shore Open registration is open.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can do that where?
There's a Facebook page. The West Shore Open 2021.
The link will be in there.
In person on the Saturday, and then live Zoom on the Sunday, or video submissions, because it looks like there's still going to be some restrictions for some people coming over.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we will not be doing video submissions. We're just going to go ahead and take a hard stance on that one. And we're going to do everything on the Saturday, including the live Zoom. We're going to project onto a projector that will be its own platform.
That'll be cool. Are you going to project Michael Jackson?
No. That might be weird. Might catch people off guard.
It might. He doesn't lift kettlebells.
All the usual COVID protocols will be in place from last year. Space will be a little bit smaller for ours, but not by much. Should be pretty straightforward as where you need to go. We'll have coffee and I think muffins and stuff like that there. And then we're going to do a post-competition barbecue, and there will be alcohol.
Oh, I'll bring my rum.
Oh.
From 2017.
Well aged.
Yep.
Okay. That's it for us today. Thanks for listening, for dropping by.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. Thank you very much. And we'll see you next time, Carissa.
All right. Sounds good.